Hey, welcome to the Strong Roots podcast. My name is Kristin Hill, and we are so excited that you're tuning in today. Our prayer is that you would move one step closer to Jesus through this series. So go ahead and check out this next episode. Welcome to the Strong Roots podcast. I'm here with John Hill, my husband, and we are in a marriage season, and we're just going to be having a candid conversation about what marriages look like in our lives and just give you the nitty-gritty of what we've learned in 11 years. So I'm really excited to start this off with you.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Yes. Unscripted, candid conversation about a marriage. She didn't tell me the questions ahead of time.
It's true.
So literally, we're probably going to have to edit a lot of this out, but we'll see.
So, John, I want everyone listening to know how we actually met, like who pursued who. I feel like that's a fun thing to know about couples.
So I would say, like, the real story is you were like very, very barely following Jesus when I met you. I did not know that at the time, but I had heard about her because everybody at church talked about she was this beautiful woman that goes to church and she's single, and like literally all the single guys that I knew of were like, Kristen, Walter have a crush on her, right? So anyway, this guy, Bruce, introduces me to Kristen one day in the lobby. I just turned around, and I remember seeing her face, and I thought, she's everything that people said she was. She's beautiful and captivating. And we had one conversation walking down the hallway of this long movie theater where we were having church. Mm-hmm. And I remember in that conversation thinking, she's captivating. She's everything that I would want in a mate selection. I was looking for a woman who could lead a church with me. And
she's 35.
Yeah, and she had been out the night before, very late, and she ended up staying at her mom's house because her mom's house was a lot closer to her church, and she borrowed all her mom's clothes. So I saw her, and in my mind, I thought she's got to be, 10 years older than me, but that's fine. I'll go for a cougar. Like, I don't care. So yeah, that's kind of how it all got started. But I had decided, I called 5 people that day. I said, hey, I met like this really wonderful girl. I'm probably gonna marry her. She's, went down the whole list in a 10-minute conversation, and I was pretty certain she'd be the one. So. And
we went pretty fast. We both knew that we were we were the one, and we dated 4 months, and then
3 months, then we got engaged. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. But I was certain, we had both put in a significant amount of time. I'd read a book called Date or Soulmate. Like, I dated a lot of people, and I just made a very clear list of, this is what I want in a spouse. And I knew that Kristen had checked those boxes, So
we have a pretty amazing dating, marry story. Fell in love fast.
Yeah.
Love first sight.
6 months, first date to marriage.
But, what was surprising about marriage? Okay, now we're married, yay. Mm-hmm. But, what's been hard? What do you wish someone would have, let you in on their marriage before we got married?
We had a lot of really good advice. I was grateful at our wedding showers, what people gave us. We had some older people throw us a wedding shower, and each person in the circle gave us a piece of advice.
It was the best.
It was, really valuable. One of the big ones was, never talk bad about your spouse to your family, because you'll forgive them, but they never will. And I know that sounds so simple, but, I think that saved us from so much, because I was pretty... Not like I was intentionally mean, but I was pretty insensitive. And
my family's super sensitive.
And protective. Mm-hmm. So I was grateful for that. I mean, there's a lot of, never make fun of your spouse in front of other people. You can, but just never, I made fun of Kristen in front of other people in our marriage, unfortunately.
It's kind of part of your job.
But Kristen has literally, I don't think in our entire marriage in 11 years, has ever put me down in front of other people. And it's kind of nice to have that confidence. And I mean, honestly, rarely have I actually, except from a sermon where I have approval from you, put you down in front of other people, in an interaction. And it's just been really nice to know that we have each other's support. But I would say the big thing that surprised us, and I think you might agree, was I think the battle with mental illness, or I don't know if mental illness, but we call it mental illness, right? Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
The battle with mental illness that you went through in our first couple years of marriage, I mean, it was really hard. It was really hard. So.
Yeah, it was just sad all the time.
Yeah. Yep.
But in your perspective, how do we get through it?
Jesus, for sure.
Yeah.
I think pursuing... We had lots of outside help. We saw counselors. I think one of the big ones, we had a lot of prayer ministries. And we didn't go to a random crazy charismatic, whatever prayer ministry, but we went to like different people who we had researched, the theology behind it, and just really felt like, hey, this is biblical.
Yeah.
God's word says that this can happen, so we're going to go and we're going to pray with these people. And I think that's really where you began to get deliverance, little by little.
And I also feel like I think in marriage it's really hard because there's that part where you want to coddle me, you want to protect me, you want to not push me. Mm-hmm. But I also think the best thing you did for me was push me and be like, okay, we're done. Like, you're going to go to church. You're going to read. You're going to go meet with people. You're going to go live out your faith. Like, you're not just going to live in this house and cry all day and, like, get worse. Like, I think there was a moment where you're like, I'm being unloving by not pushing you. And I think that was one of the best things you did.
I think I had a supreme confidence, and I mean, I did, like, I always push people. So that, like, I didn't actually think about doing that. Like, that was not a strategy that I had. I was just like, I've set up all these meetings for you with women to meet with, and you need to go do ministry to them because I can't do it, but you need to do it because you're my wife, and like that's part of why we're married is like we're a ministry team. So I don't know. I never thought that was just what I assumed, but I did. One of the things I did do was I continually said, "This I in my heart I just believe that this is not who she's going to be. Like I had a vision for who you would become, like a healthy, wonderful, not crying every day person who's going to change the world. And I never had any doubt that you would eventually get there. Yeah. And so whenever you would be in that situation, crying and whatever, I'd come home and just say, this is not who you are. Like, this is not who you are. And I knew it wasn't who you are. So
what's the worst thing we did in our marriage? Like, what's the worst habit or the thing that like, if we would go back in time, we'd be like, oh, we would not do that again? Do you know?
Man, I don't know. I think that perhaps being too needy of each other. Yeah. Like I think that, I think we just enjoyed each other a ton, which is great. But maybe a little too much. I don't know.
At the beginning? Oh, yeah.
At the beginning, it was a lot.
I feel like we missed out on opportunities for ministry.
Yeah.
Like we just hung out with each other every night. We didn't invite people over to the house much.
Yeah.
And I would say that was probably more me than you. I was like, again, you pushed me. Like, okay, we're having people over.
Yeah.
My family is the family where we only hung out with other people at Christmas and Easter. So I was not used to people being in my house. We did have renters in our basement. That is something unique. We've always lived with people. But that was even really hard. Like having
bunch of single dudes living in the basement, making a mess of the house all the time. Hey, we just got married. You're mentally ill. Go cry in your room because there's a bunch of dudes in our kitchen making a mess out of it.
Pretty much.
We couldn't afford to live any other way. We were pretty poor, so.
Right.
Yeah.
But besides that, like being too clingy, is there anything else that, I don't know, we'd either totally do again or we would say, man, that was a mistake?
I think commitment to confess our sin to each other has been a big thing. Like, in our marriage, like both of us at different times have felt attraction to other people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a pretty normal thing to like, oh, I shouldn't do that, whatever. But like the discipline of like telling Kristin like, hey, I saw this woman that I found attractive, and I just want you to know that, like, I thought of this in my mind, and it's not just like, oh, she's beautiful, but like I found myself like wanting to spend time with this person or thinking about them, and I wanted you to know, and you've done the same for me. Mm-hmm. I remember there was this dude, so we were super busy, and there's this dude named Adam
You love
Notch.
This story.
Great guy.
Hope he's not watching.
If he is, great. Let him know. But great guy, and I was working like 80, 90 hours a week, all the time, cranky, stressed. She was not in a great way, and I didn't have time to do anything, but I never took the trash out. Like, what a bum, right? I did nothing around the house. I didn't take the trash out. I was in seminary. Like, it was crazy.
Did you mention I was doing daycare?
She was doing daycare with 14 kids at home all day, so that's crazy. And... Was it 14? Might have been 10. I don't know. It was a lot.
Depends if it was summer or not.
Yeah, summer with a lot of kids. It was summer, though, when Adam was doing this. But Adam would come down and talk with Kristin, look her in the eye, be really nice, and then he would take the trash out every day. And Kristin was like, I can't wait for Adam to come talk with me. Like, that's the highlight of my day. And I was like, son of a bee sting.
But that's not how I said it. I'm like, hey, I got to tell you, like,
yeah, right.
I feel really guilty.
Right.
I feel like I'm embarrassed that I'm preaching him taking out the trash.
I think that's how you get frigid, and that's
Yeah.
how that's the beginning of an affair. Like that's the
Yeah.
beginning of giving your heart to someone else. And I'm just glad we've always had that discipline, that openness. You know what I mean? Like I told Kristin, hey, you got to get off the Victoria's Secret mailing list, or I'm not getting the mail anymore.
That's
Like
true.
I don't want to see that. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to look at that when that comes in the mail. Like those are all things that have been helpful to us.
I agree.
So,
and I also think too, the way that you have, when I have confessed sin, I think this is a big part of you being a Christian and God in you. But I feel like He has always. I don't feel like there's ever been a time where you've ever attacked me. Like, even with that Adam thing, like, when I said, like, hey, I need to tell you, like, I have feelings for him when he takes the trash out, as silly as that sounds. But, like, you didn't yell at me. You didn't get mad at me. You just forgave me and said...
Oh, I was just great. You know what I did was I took the trash out every day.
But, like, I don't know. You made it a safe place to confess sin. And I think... that is something that I'd advise people in marriage and relationships. If you overreacted, it would have been that much harder to tell him the truth the next time. But since you were so gracious and so forgiving and more concerned with the health of my heart
Right.
than the actions that my heart was
Right.
portraying, like I think that led the way for me to confess future sin with you, and that was huge. And I think you modeled that for me. So I would say out of the two of us, if you screwed up in the beginning, I'd lose my mind.
She's been really graceful. I would say, like, lady, so one thing that Kristin's done that's been helpful for our marriage, and this is getting a little intimate, but so I've always been into boats, and I remember when I got my Instagram account, years ago, I would, like, look at boats because I like looking at boats, but on the boats, there were girls in bikinis. And I remember, like, getting excited about looking at boats, but then it was, like, boats with girls in bikinis and, like, boat brands. And being able to, like, tell Kristin, like, hey, this is a habit that I've begun developing. Like, this is a desire. Like, I really want to do this. And being able to tell her that, and, like, she was and is a beautiful woman. There's nothing that they have that she doesn't have. And yet, like, I'm desiring to do this. And there's nothing that, like, she, we'll talk more about that in a minute as far as, like, meeting my physical needs or meeting each other's physical needs. But, like... being able to confess that to her without her freaking out and extending grace to me instantly and like forgiving me instantly and then like sharing her body with me like and not like withholding that has been I would say when we confess into each other in that way, like immediately forgiving each other has been it's just been a really big deal. You know what I mean? Like we're able to look at our marriage and outside of your mental illness, which wasn't like a fight between us. Like we've had a brief season while she was pregnant with Hermione, which was it's just
otherworldly.
A lot of anger. Every man has two wives, the one he married and the one who's pregnant or nursing, right? But
anyway. That was because of godly counsel. It was only because a woman in my life who loved God, and I called her because I was frustrated, and she was the one who was like, "You need to forgive him, and you need to go and have sex with him. Like you need to share your body with him." Like she's like, I don't. She was even like, I don't want to tell you that. Like, I want to tell you, like, and I want to ream them out on the phone. But, like, she's like, that's what you got to do. And ever since that day, like, it was a blessing to us fighting against and dying to myself. And I love that.
And I would say that we have always used, like, God created sex and physical interaction and it's a gift that we use to bind us together with love for one another. And we've made a commitment to be physical daily. And I know that sounds crazy and every couple can do something different. But for us, that has been, for the last 11 years, like a really big, like, we have to resolve whatever it is that's going between us. And then at the end of the day, like, we are going to, like, know that our relationship is okay. And I think that's been a big deal for both of us at different seasons. Like, really, really big blessing and, really helpful. Somebody gave us that challenge early on and it, as a young man, I was like, yeah. As an old man, I'm like, okay, But it's been a big blessing, and I know that might be TMI. Maybe we'll edit that out. Who knows? But anyway.
But it had. I mean, it's supposed to be in the context of marriage, and I feel like the enemy does everything he can to get you to do it before, and everything he can to get you to stop doing it in marriage. I mean, we counsel so many people.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a really great, honestly, discipline.
Yeah.
I mean, because
it's not like some like. It's not always like a big production. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to say that. Like, it doesn't need to take your whole evening to make that commitment. Because some couples are like, well, how could we do that? Like, but anyway, I think it's always like if either of us don't want to do that ahead of time, it's always afterwards for our relationship an experience that has brought us together. And so I think that probably has been the single, like, as far as like just outside of like in less tangible spiritual things, I think that has probably been the single greatest decision that we have made. And I think for us, like, it's just been a really big deal. And I know that sounds really out there, but for couples that are wondering, like, hey, what did John and Kristin know? Like, that's what we know.
And I think that it kind of dispels, I don't know the right word, but like a crazy cycle, because women have sex to get intimacy. Men, you give intimacy to us so you can have sex.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like we're both getting our desires and our needs by doing this thing, because you give me more intimacy when we are intimate in that way.
Right.
And like vice versa. Like you feel intimate with me when we have sex. Like it is, I think so many marriages, like it's this tension, it's this fight, it's this discontentment because we're not meeting each other's needs in that way.
Right. And I think a lot of women too are like, I wish my husband would love on me or whatever. And like, because you meet that need that I have, like it is like, I feel a very natural desire to think about you and to love on you all the time. So anyway, we should probably move out of this subject area. I don't know.
Yeah. So I think I feel like we've talked a lot. I feel like we can almost wrap this up, but I guess I just want to end with this question. So how do your spiritual roots remain strong in Jesus in regards to marriage?
I think one of the big things is it is not your job to carry my spiritual burdens. It's both of our job to point one another to Jesus and I think remind each other to carry our own burdens. At the end of the day, like we won't be married in heaven. You know what I mean? Like we're married on earth. We're in heaven together with a deeper intimacy with everyone than we've ever known, right? And like understanding that, like, and if you're with somebody who is struggling spiritually, like you don't need to go in that journey of doubt with them.
Right.
And I think that's a big deal. Like, oh, like, she's really doubting and she's doing all this stuff and, all these things. And it's like, there's been a couple times in our relationship where you've looked at me and said, hey, I'm not going down that road with you. You know what I mean? Like, this is where I draw. And I've, sometimes like done the same. And I think that for us, like just understanding like our relationship with Jesus is something like I'm not going to stand before God with Kristin. I'm standing before God and giving an account for my life and understanding like I'm not going to rely on her to prop me up and vice versa. Like I'm pursuing Jesus greatly and she's like encouraging me to do that, but not carrying. I think that's been helpful.
Oh, I agree. And I think it's been hard. I think that's been
to not be codependent.
Oh, and be intertwined in that way. Like thinking my relationship with Jesus is reflected upon your intimacy with him and like getting sucked down or getting lifted up, because like that is such great advice. And I think I meet so many women or so many men who are not willing to follow Jesus because their spouse isn't there yet.
Right.
And it's like sometimes people do get to follow Jesus and they give their lives to him at the same time, but like that is the exception to the rule.
Right.
Like, and again, like your faith is your own. And you got to fight for your faith. You got to fight for your relationship with Jesus. You got to read your Bible. And like, I think we had a lot of fights in the beginning. Like, I was like, I want to read our Bibles together and like get up at the same time. And like, we don't get up at the same time. Like, we're very different people. And I was trying to force this thing and force you to fit into my mold, and it just hurt us.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. So anything you'd want to challenge people to do?
We talked about a lot. I think, we gave some initial advice at the start. We talked about walking with each other through mental illness. We talked about the physical intimacy challenge. I think, whatever one of those things really, the spiritual component at the end, but whatever one of those things really stood out to you, I think would be a challenge you could take. For me, when I do premarital, I think one of my favorite ones is to help couples learn to use physical intimacy the way that God calls us to, and to confess sin. Like, I think those would be the two big ones that stick out to me that I think are really important for a great marriage. So.
Well, I second that. Well, thank you, John. Thanks for being vulnerable, and thank you everyone for listening. I'm excited about this season, and I cannot wait to catch you next time. Bye. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow us on our other social media platforms. We don't want you to miss out on any future content. Thank you so much again, guys. I hope you have a great day. And I want you to know I am personally praying that your roots stay strong.